Hello and welcome to the Sex Manifesto, where we explore the unspoken issues affecting our bodies, sex lives, and identities. I'm your host, Sarah Vaci. Just a little heads up, the Sex Manifesto does cover some adult themes, and you might hear some explicit language. Now, on with the show. I always feel like I should have a quick gin and tonic before these interviews,
Yeah,
but it is 11 o'clock in the morning.
do you know
Feels
what
a
the
little bit strange to have a gin and tonic.
rescue remedy?
What have you had some just
Oh yeah,
before
it's
coming on here?
wonderful stuff. Wonderful. You don't need gin and tonic when you got rescue remedy.
I had it before my driving test, and I can't remember if that was the one I failed or I passed, but I think it helped. Whether it was placebo or not, it still helped.
Yeah.
So yeah, tell me a little bit about yourself for the people who
Well,
don't know.
yeah. Well, I am Nick. I am a man, and I have Klinefelter syndrome, which is 47XXY, if we want to go into techniques. And I decided to join Twitter because I saw a lot of misinformation out there and I had something to say and I wasn't going to let it lie. So I decided to join and yeah, and I have quite a following now, which is quite lovely. I'm based in Dorset, down in the south of UK, so we're quite sheltered down here actually from a lot of things. And obviously, I've never been one for going on things like Twitter, so it was me. I'm quite a quiet person, and when I joined, I let my inner voice out, which has a lot to say.
So tell me a little bit more about Klinefelter syndrome, because for the people who don't know.
Okay, so Klinefelter syndrome is a difference of sex development, so DSD. It's basically on the intersex spectrum, and in men, you typically find quite a low count of testosterone, breast growth. I have quite severe breast growth, lack of facial hair in places. Trying to think of sometimes quite a lot of the time people with Klinefelter are a lot taller than average, smaller.
How tall are you?
I'm
Are you
six.
taller than average?
I am. I would say about average, about around about 6 foot. So I think the average is about 5.57, something like that. I'm not entirely sure, but I know with Klinefelter, I know other sufferers of Klinefelter are a lot taller than me, about 6'5". So it is
Wow.
it is actually a spectrum. Klinefelters. You find some men don't have a lot of symptoms of it, and then you find men like myself who actually have quite a few symptoms and quite severe symptoms. So there is actually a varying sort of degree within Klinefelter, and it's the same with a lot of other intersex disorders or conditions. And a lot of people don't like intersex being called a disorder, but it is a a medical condition, and from birth as well, may I say, and it's very interesting, and but at the same time it's very misunderstood. A lot of people don't understand it, and obviously this is where we find a lot of misinformation on places like Twitter and on the internet in general.
Yeah, yeah. So what are some of the misconceptions that you've had to debunk on there?
Well, the main misconception is some with anybody with intersex is apparently a third sex. That's not true at all. Or we're other sexes, and that sex is a spectrum because we're proof of that apparently. But no, that's not true. Sex is binary. It is fully binary. There are variations of male and female, which is what you would see in intersex people, but we are generally still male or female. I'm male. Klinefelter syndrome can only be found in men and boys. It's not found in anybody else. There are some women who do have 47XXY. That's a tiny minority, but they're not Klinefelter syndrome sufferers. They don't have Klinefelter because it's only found in men. And,
Hmm. So I am reading a lot about sex and gender, as you know, it's like a passion of mine, and I'm curious how you define sex, because
sex,
there are many different there's the small and the large gamete
yeah,
definition. Is that what you're basing that on?
pretty much. Yeah, it's pretty. The science behind it is so established. It's the medical science behind, sex is just is there's so many resources out there, and may I say peer reviewed resources. One of the things I always encounter when I'm on Twitter or any social media platform is people who are pro gender, I would say. So they believe in this gender ideology, that there are many different genders. They will try and incorporate sex into that to bolster their sort of understanding, but it should be left alone, really, because what they use is pseudoscience, which is basically theory. There's no actual medical science there to back up, you know, their claims
Hmm.
in a way, and they will use pseudoscience, which is all theory from people who are not peer reviewed. Um,
Hmm.
and it is a little bit disturbing for me because they should be using the peer reviewed material out there and looking at established facts and established science. It's really not difficult. Um, I For me, I'm very respectful of people who wish to be different genders or people who are transgender or transsexual. I believe everybody to be equal, but at the same time, I do have to challenge, some people who try and spread misinformation. It needs
Hmm.
to be addressed for the sake of people who are intersex like myself, because we'll
Yeah, and
get
you've
around.
also
Mm.
yeah, I've noticed that there are people who try and appropriate this. I noticed that you called someone out on Twitter who said they were intersex when they weren't as
Yeah,
well. So that's also an issue.
yeah. There is a growing trend at the moment of people within the trans movements. You tend to find, unfortunately, who are pretending to be intersex to bolster their claim that they have both sets of genitals and therefore they can impregnate themselves and get pregnant. And they will use things like,
People say that.
yeah,
People
yes,
really say that.
yes, they do. We, myself and Alex Illicit, who is on, I think I said that correctly, Alex, who is a fellow DSD advocate. We are finding a lot of just very, oh, it is grotesque. It is very insulting to people with intersex. But things like, they will call us hermaphrodite. That annoys me because hermaphroditism doesn't happen in Homo sapiens. There are some
Hmm.
people who are born with both with organs, with male and female organs, but you find typically that these people are rare, have rare diseases, and that they're so rare. There's only a handful, I would say, probably uh, no more than 10 in the world. It is so tiny, and but they can't reproduce. A lot of these people have serious complications. They're in a lot of pain. It you know the, a lot of gender ideologists will try and make out it's fantastic that people have two sets, and they wish, and I've seen this, they wish they were intersex so they could have both sets, and it doesn't work like that.
Mm.
I find there's a lot of complications, there's a lot of pain, and there's a lot of it's not possible. Hermaphroditism, as I say, does not occur naturally, and I say naturally
Hmm.
because that is a fact in humans. I don't think
Mm.
it's possible, even if from a cosmetic point of view, I don't think anyone could manage that without causing serious harm to themselves. Um,
Yeah. So tell me, I'm just curious if about the LGBTQI
mm,
plus acronym. I have read articles that said I realize that obviously as a gay man you are included in that in that sense. Do you feel like intersex should be part of the LGBTQI plus
no.
the acronym? Because I've read articles that said that's the one that doesn't quite belong. I mean, not that you don't belong in a group.
Oh
And
no.
do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Personally, as a gay man or homosexual man, I'm same-sex attracted. I make that point quite clearly to people. Um, uh, I don't even believe that I fit within the acronym anymore. I just don't. Their values do not match my values. And there's a lot of issues, and in fact they don't with the LGBTQI plus community. They focus mostly now on gender rather than same-sex rights, obviously. But going back to your point with intersex, the I do not believe it should be part of the acronym at all, because having an intersex medical condition is not an identity. It's not a
Hmm.
sexuality. It's not a gender. And those are the
Yeah.
prime, things which would make the LGBTQI plus community. That's their
Hmm.
sort of foundations. That's their sort of activism in a way. And intersex is
Hmm.
none of that. It's a medical condition. The other thing I would say is a lot of people with intersex are heterosexual. You find, I mean, only a small minority are same-sex attracted or fit within the LGBTQI plus community. I um, so yeah, in my opinion, it's a bit of an insult. It's should not be there, and it's being misused as well to bolster, that sort of societal um, grouping, if you wish. But there's a lot of people who even are gay, lesbian, bisexual, who don't even feel they're part of the LGBTQI community. A lot of people think that we're automatically part of the acronym, but people like myself who feel very individual, I feel very unique. I don't want to be under some sort of brand in a way. I just want
Yeah.
to be myself, and I don't. I feel very claustrophobic to be pigeonholed into that sort of acronym, especially when
Hmm.
it's now eroding the core principles of same-sex rights, same-sex sexual orientation rights. They don't speak for me anymore, unfortunately. And places like Stonewall,
Hmm.
which I've always loved Stonewall over the years, but unfortunately I can't respect them anymore for the way they now champion other rights.
Hmm.
Right? I mean, championing other rights, obviously, and going back to that, I think everyone should have equal rights and we should be respected in society and tolerated. But there should, in my opinion, there should be separate movements. It's all kind of being blurred in together and that's
Yeah.
causing a lot of problems, I believe.
And very polarized, so people can't openly have nicer, sensible, intelligent discussions like we are right now.
Yeah.
Because especially on Twitter, these things get a bit vicious very quickly, and
Yeah.
there's a
I
lot of
mean,
name calling.
it's horrible, and one of the things I see quite often, obviously, is people being called TERF, which is trans radical. I can't think now. Is it trans? I can't
Trans
think now.
exclusionary radical
That's it.
feminist. Yeah, yeah.
That's the one. I got called that the other day. Now I'm a man. I don't. Although I wouldn't class myself as a feminist, I am an ally of feminism. So when somebody calls me a TERF, I'm like, well, that's not really true, is it? There are some gender critical people out there who've coined new terms for themselves as men, like mirth. It's quite funny in a way. But the thing
Oh, I haven't
is,
heard that one yet.
yeah, it's I can't think what they actually are. I should go back and check them up. I know.
Surely it should be a term. It should be a term, trans exclusionary radical male. But we talked before another time about the radical fairies. So
Yes, there
tell me
are
a
a
bit about
group
that.
of us which are radical fairies. I mean, I'm quite new to them. I mean, they've actually splintered in a way. Radical fairies was a group which was set up by gay men, really, to promote our rights and fight against anything going against our rights and our right to exist in a way. Um, Radical Fairy, I don't know huge amounts about them. I literally only joined, I would or consider myself as a radical fairy in a way, but I really obviously not just intersex cause is a concern of mine, but also my homosexual rights, and I'm saying the only reason I decided to become a radical fairy is because I saw my rights and my right to exist as a same sex sexual attraction person, orientation person. My rights started to diminish because of gender ideology. Um,
Hmm.
Obviously, going back before, I have a huge respect for people who are trans people. So if they're trans women or trans men, I have huge respect, and as I said, I believe in equal rights for all. However, and I have to be blunt on this, as somebody who is same sex attracted, so to men, biological men, if you wish, because that's what sex is. Um, I understand there are trans men out there, and I do respect them, but for me as a gay man, I am attracted to men with a penis, if you wish to say in the most blunt. I'm trying to be a bit friendlier, but
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
blunt way. And obviously, trans men don't have penises, and I've been
yeah.
accused of a genital fetish for that. And in my entire sort of cosmos of being a gay man, I've never heard that word, and I've never thought about something like that, and it
Yeah.
kind of disgusts me in a way because it is a very homophobic thing to say towards a man who obviously is same-sex attraction. It's very defined,
Inherent.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
inherent.
And it's also to me, there are people obviously who are attracted to all types of
Yeah,
bodies and people, but I, I can't speak for everyone. I can speak for
no,
myself. I prefer, yeah, I do like women and I like men, mostly men, and mostly men. I would say men with male bodies. And as strap-ons are not the same.
no, they're not. And this is
And
what
that
I've been trying to tell people. It's like sex toys are nothing like the real thing, and
but it's
it
not
is a
even the
fact.
genitals. I would say it's the
And all the
maleness
hormones,
of, yeah, it's
the
a
pheromones in a
combination of
way as
things.
well. It's the pheromones, and when you have people who take obviously hormone replacements and stuff, it doesn't do the right thing. With a male body, so a biologically male body, the hormones and the pheromones are very much there. But
Yeah, it's a sort of
even
male inherent maleness or something like that. I don't.
yeah,
It's really tricky. I know we're edging
always
into this tricky territory.
it's
But
very tricky.
how have you? Yeah, yeah. So how have you found? So I've got two questions. It's up to you which one we discuss first. The first one is, how have you found life growing up with Kleinfelters? And then maybe if we go chronologically, then I'm really curious about how dating has been for you. So tell me a bit about those early. When were you diagnosed? How was life growing up?
Right.
DSD?
Okay. Well, obviously the symptoms I had from my DSD were very prevalent going through puberty. With Klinefelter syndrome, you typically find that younger it's rarely diagnosed when you're young, quite young, because the symptoms don't really show up until you really hit puberty in a way. And as I was going through puberty, and it really showed when I was at school, I was quite a lot thinner than I am now. um, but I started growing breasts at school, and I was concerned. I was really upset because I got bullied in the changing rooms by my fellow classmates. Obviously, kids are cruel. Bullying would happen. I forgive them now, obviously, as a grown up. So, but back then, yeah, it was very tough. Obviously, symptoms like I wasn't as testosterone driven as the other boys were, and I was very girly. I even had a phase of my doctors now would describe as temporary gender dysphoria. It can happen with people with DSD. I did believe I was a girl back when I was about 11 or 12. I would actually dress in girls' clothes. And it was only over a course of a year that happened. Um, and then obviously reflecting back on it now, I know I wasn't in the right frame of mind, and it's possibly because of going through puberty with having a DSD and then have developing this temporary gender dysphoria, which is a mental health condition. And a lot of people don't like to say that gender dysphoria is mental health, but it is. And it is a serious condition, and it should be studied more because it's just causes so
Mm.
many problems for people. And I do have a bit of sort of understanding of what trans people may be going through, because I did have that when I was younger, and I
Mm.
generally I was a girl. I literally I was thinking, well, I've got breasts now, but I got male parts, and it was very
So
confusing for me.
did you get any help, or how did your family react?
Well, my mum and my stepfather, they saw it was a bit weird, and I was quite an odd child in a way, which I'm still special now, but we they didn't really think about it. We did go to the
So did you go
doctors
to
when I was,
school? Did you
pardon?
go to school in a dress, or you just
No,
so
it was
was anyone outside the family aware?
my friends were. I had quite close friends who were like knew I was quite girly, and I came out as gay really early on as well. When I was about 13, I think it was 13. It was in year 9 that I came out, which is really rare for back then. Obviously, this was what 20. Am I 34 now? So yeah, this is about 20 years ago, and that coming out gay at such a young age, that wasn't sort of the norm. Usually, when men or women come out as gay or lesbian, it's usually late teens, that sort of thing. But I came out really early. It's because I felt I was also told I was gay, as well, which wasn't helpful. But I know I am. Obviously, it's part of who I am. There's a lot of things I have questioned, obviously, because of all of that. I did question my sexuality. I did think, well, is it because of my DSD that I'm like this? Or I've also thought, if I have treatment, am I going to be straight all of a sudden? But then I thought, no, that's a silly, but you do have to question these things in the name of science in a way, which I know I'm probably it's very controversial for me to say, but, hormones and, uh, issues with your body can cause a lot of things to happen. It can change
Mm.
a person. It can cause significant issues for people, and it does need more, you know, addressing and more study in a way. But no, I
So when
was
were
never.
you yeah.
Yeah, I was
When were
saying
you diagnosed?
I was diagnosed last year. I was getting quite a lot of bad symptoms. It's my anxiety I've had for quite some time, and there's another symptom of having Klinefelter is anxiety and depression. And one of the things I had over the years was quite a severe amount of anxiety and depression, and it just wouldn't go away. And I wanted it to look into it in more detail. Um, I was speaking to obviously a mental health therapist, and I was saying how self-conscious I was because I had breasts, and obviously I was very girly in a way, and I felt very just alone, and I didn't know what was going on with me. And it was actually my mental health therapist who turned around and went, have you thought about looking into if you've got a DSD? Because it would seem to me that you might have something. And I didn't think of that. And none of the doctors, I mean, we did, when I was 20, I did see a doctor about it, and they were like, oh, it's just issues with a fat distribution or something like that. And I'm thinking, it doesn't sound right. So yeah, I managed to secure a appointment. My sister came with me, and I was basically told to undress. I had blood tests. They obviously physically examined me, looked at me. 'Cause another thing with Klinefelters obviously is small testes, small underdeveloped testes, and with a lot of Klinefelter sufferers, you find is a condition called hypogonadism, which is quite funny. When I heard her, so I was like, "Oh, gonads." So basically, I got checked for that. I found that I had hypogonadism. So basically, I have very small, undeveloped testes. They reckon I am infertile as well, which is I don't really have a problem with that because as a gay man, I'm not really going to reproduce. But yeah, it was a surprise, but it wasn't a shock. And
Mhm.
I'm just happy I've been diagnosed now, and I'm currently awaiting much delayed therapy to take testosterone, to see how that goes over the course of probably a year, and if my breast tissue doesn't shrink back in, or uh, certain issues are not resolved, it will have to look at surgery to remove those breasts. Because another thing with Klinefelter sufferers is uh, when we do grow breast tissue, we are more likely to develop breast cancer later on in life, and that's something
Mhm.
I want to avoid. So it is an important thing to get sorted.
And do you think you might feel differently about your body as well if you had your breasts removed?
I will feel a lot more a little bit. I would feel so much more confident in myself. The worst thing for me is summer because you wear t-shirts, loosely fit t-shirts, or sometimes tight t-shirts. And one of the things I always get when people see me in the street, especially if the wind blows the wrong way towards me, so the t-shirt flattens against my chest, and obviously it's very more people can see the boobs in a way. And I have been very self-conscious over the years. It has caused a lot of problems to the point where I think I might have body dysphoria because I've been ashamed of my body in a way. I'm not
Mhm.
so much not so ashamed now. I'm very proud of who I am because I found out I've got a DSD, and I found,
Mhm.
I am different, and there is a reason why, and I should be very, proud of myself. So I've got mixed feelings in a way because it's been so long since for me hating my body, but now kind of like going, oh wow, okay, well, this is different. I should be more proud about it. But I
Yeah,
just
well, the
want,
way I came across your account is you posted a picture on
yeah,
Twitter,
yes,
and it caught my attention. I don't know if that's a strange thing to say, and that's when I was so impressed at how it felt very brave to me. And what kind of reactions did you get? I mean, yeah, that was quite a big deal for you, I imagine. Then.
it was a massive deal. I mean, I really had to work my confidence up for that. I was seeing a lot of posts, obviously, which was, the misinformation of Klinefelter sufferers. I saw, people on there. I actually had people question if I had a DSD, and that was quite insulting in a way. They were like, going, "Oh, are you just faking it for attention?" And I just thought, right, that's it. It's something just clicked and something snapped in me, and I just thought, you know what? I'm going to put up a picture of me. You know, I did took the stars because I thought at first it'd be like Facebook and I'd get taken down. So I didn't want to. So I obviously did the censor thing, a bit like burlesque.
Well, it did for me, it did bring up the whole like, hang on a minute, it's okay. Like it does blur that boundary of like, oh, well, if I put my boobs up, I don't remember the stars bit, but that is quite interesting. It's like, I can't just put a topless picture up, and yet, on paper as a man you can, and yet,
Yeah.
I think your breasts are bigger than mine. Not that it's about size. I used to
I
joke
think
that I inherited my boobs from my dad. That was my joke. Um,
I think there is a lot
but
of
now
misogyny
we can both go a bit red.
I'm not embarrassed by body parts anymore. I'm so used to being looked at it under the microscope by the consultants and the doctors now, and obviously the general public now, and they've seen me now. I'm not embarrassed by my body at all because it's who I am.
And what kind of
But
reactions did you get? What kind of reactions did you get? Because I know that as an intersex person, you said that both sides, the sort of feminists and then the trans activists, they both try and like claim intersex for
yeah,
themselves. And so, what reactions did you get to the photo, and what sort of how's it been?
I had a lot of praise. I wasn't expecting it, to be honest. I only put that picture up to try and educate people. It was a very short thread. It was very concise. I wanted it to be concise because a lot of people ramble on, in threads and they go on for ages. And I just thought, well, if I do a 7 or 8 part, thread with a basic description of what I suffer from, and how it affects me and a little bit about my life, I thought it would bring just a little bit of factual reality into a place like Twitter. I had already done a very similar post on my Facebook and also in a group called Lads Advice, which is for a peer support group for men, especially men suffering with mental health conditions or struggling. So I did a post in there as well, just to kind of more for an uplift, to show that there are a lot of issues out there and how we all deal with them, and just to kind of enlighten people in a way. So I have actually done 2 posts already on Facebook, one on my private profile and then one on the Lads Advice group. And then I thought, well, I might as well do one on Twitter then, just to kind of to educate people more than anything, because I've seen so much misinformation being spread around by obviously gender from the trans movement and from gender ideologists. And then obviously there are people, unfortunately, within the gender critical community who denounce intersex altogether. They say it doesn't exist and you only have XY and XX. And it's like, well, no, because I do have XXY. It is, a medical fact.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually been diagnosed with it. So, they don't know anything. There are huge extremists on both sides of the debate, unfortunately, and they give a bad name to both sort of causes, if you wish. I mean, the thing is, I do understand that, for example, people who are on the gender ideology side, they just want to be respected for having a gender and being accepted in society, and that's something I'm all for. And obviously, you got on the gender critical side, you've got a lot of people, a lot of women. Mostly women and people of same sex, and now people who have children and people with intersex. So it is a huge kind of group of people. A lot of people think it's all about feminism, but it isn't. There's a lot of different facets going on.
Mm-hmm.
People protecting their rights, so to speak. I think what everybody on both sides of the debate need to to learn is that although yes, we're all wanting equal rights and to be recognized in society and to be tolerated and to be respected and just to live in peace in a way, um, people have to stop infringing on others. They have to stop
Hmm.
projecting their rights on others and basically demanding that other people have to change for them. That has to stop,
Yeah.
and that's on both sides. And I think with a bit of open-mindedness and with a bit of you know possible compromises, I mean, these are not major ones but small ones that could possibly change the ground a bit. I
Hmm.
believe that both sides could come up with a solution. I'm very diplomatic. I've always believed that solutions can be found by a reasonable dialogue and actually thinking outside the box in a way to come up with solutions. I mean, there is a lot of worry, obviously, from the gender critical side with females and feminists and lesbians, and about men going into toilets, into changing
Yeah.
rooms. I do understand the concern there because there are unfortunately people of a genderist, if I would to say that. I don't know if that's the right term for people like that. Uh, Obviously,
There's people who would take advantage.
they're
They would
taking
take it.
advantage, and and the problem is they're also being accepted, within the gender movement in a way, because
Mm,
that's not right because they're doing it on purpose. It's very clear that they're doing it on purpose as well because they're very predatory in the way they come across. They're very sexist. They're
yeah.
very creepy in a way, especially some of the stuff they come out with. And I can understand the
Yeah.
concern of the gender critical feminists out there when they see that. They have the right to be scared. I would be scared if I was a woman to see that. I can see their perspective completely. But
I
when
do feel like there's two. What you're saying is right. There's. I feel like there's two groups of within the trans community. There's the quiet trans people who just want to get
yeah,
on with their lives, and I know several of them, and
yeah,
they're like, do you know what? I just you know using the toilet that I want to use,
and
and
that's
just
fine.
having my regular job, and then there's another side that is you know
Creepy.
very vocal. That's your word, but yeah, yeah. Well, no, there's probably more than that. There's the young people who have mental health issues, which I feel there should be more psychological intervention.
I agree with
And then there are some people who probably the best case scenario is hormones and eventually operations, and there's that side. And then there's a very small amount of men with autogynephilia who have they want to transition for their own, because they
yeah.
get
It's
a kick
fetish
out
in
of
a way,
that
isn't
idea.
it?
So
It's
there's many different areas to this debate. I wonder if
it's
that's
not
a
black
good
and white.
segue. I'm trying to work out to ask you about your dating life and how is that a good segue? I don't know if it is.
Yeah, fine. I can go into that. Yeah, dating wise has the thing is it's very difficult. One of the things, obviously, being a gay man with a DSD, I've got a very feminine body, and for a lot of gay men, that's an instant turn off. They want men. They want I don't know. Most of the guys I know, they love hairy butch men, who can growl, and I don't do any of those things, unfortunately.
You can't
I try.
growl.
I can't. Well, I
You
can
can't
growl, but
growl.
I can growl, but it sounds like a meow, so it doesn't work very well. I'm not going to do it on camera because it's very embarrassing. Um,
Okay.
uh, it's that's the sort of thing I see. Obviously, everybody has preferences. Obviously, I have had a couple of relationships, but they haven't really worked very well because obviously you get to the sex part and they look and go, "Fucking hell, what's happened to you?" Excuse my language. Um, but it's I understand, and it doesn't. it hurts in one way, but at the same time, I do understand the reason why, and I respect that. And this is another problem, which obviously going with trans men, they often say, well, it's transphobic if a man turns around and looks at my body and doesn't want to have it. It's the same sort of for me. There are gay men who will look at me and they're like, I don't want that body. I'm not attracted to that body. I have boobs. They don't want boobs. They want pecs, and I totally understand that. And it is hurtful a little bit, but at the same time, I do understand that people have preferences, and I'm all for preferences. I
Yeah.
totally understand why. And preferences and boundaries must be respected. It doesn't
Yeah, I mean,
matter how
some
much.
people like big boobs. Some people like big boobs, and if they, it would be lovely if it was all down to my witty banter and my sparkling personality. But it's a small thing, but I don't shave my armpits, and there are some guys, I'm sure, who would much prefer a totally smooth lady. And that's something that we just have, I have to accept that, if, I mean, in an ideal world, it would all be down to just personality, but there is biological attraction. There is like a basic attraction that you do or you don't have
Yeah.
to someone, and their body is part of that.
Yeah,
So,
it's like it. I think one of the things is, obviously, you see that there is somebody out there for everybody in a way. Is this world is vast, that there's billions of people out there, and obviously it doesn't help that obviously with coronavirus we're pretty much in lockdown, or we can't travel abroad to meet anybody. I'm sure there's somebody out there who absolutely has taken a total shining to me, and wants to be my boyfriend. And I tell you what, shout out now if you're interested, hit me up. God, I'm done with the kids. No, it's hit me up is such an old phrase, honestly. That's like that one came out of nowhere. Um, yeah, so I do. I'm optimistic that I will find somebody, but the pool is very small for me. And then the other thing, obviously, because I've got gender critical views, again, there's a lot of people out there who hate that. They don't want anything to do that. But I've known people who have massive differences, spiritually and politically, and they managed to become couples, and loving couples. So opposites do attract, and I think people have got to be a bit more open-minded. I mean, I would date somebody who would have completely opposite views to me, because I respect them as individuals, and I believe, even though I disagree with people, I think disagreeing with people is fantastic. I mean, I don't understand why everybody has to agree. I don't understand the
be
notion
quite a
of it.
boring world, wouldn't it? Be quite
Yeah,
boring if we
totally.
all.
It's so important. This whole thing about disagreeing with one another is actually fantastic, because it shows we all have uniqueness. We're all individuals still, and I love that. And I don't understand why it's bad to not agree with something. I mean, obviously I have massive disagreements on Twitter when I'm addressing some of the pro-gender genderists on there, who will say that sex is a spectrum. I'm like, well, it's not a spectrum. Please stop appropriating me. And I'm polite. I try to be polite, as at the end of the day, they are still humans at the end of a monitor and keyboard. I think that's another thing is to with places like social media, where a lot of it is anonymous. I'm not anonymous. I mean, I give my first name. I'm pretty much given my location where I live in Dorset. I have nothing to hide, though. I'm very open to share my life, and I don't. I mean, obviously, going on to that, I do have awareness of being doxxed, but at the same time, I have the law to protect me. I'm not actually that worried. And I mean, if people wanted to do that, I mean, if they tried doing that, I'm not going to be too worried, to be absolutely honest. It's not going to affect me personally. I'm not going to be, scared. I'm not that sort of person. I'm very much a warrior.
Mhm.
I
And tell
will
me,
fight.
yeah, and you said that something happened with your jewelry business recently.
Yeah, I had a lot of cancel culture thrown at it. I had this was last year it happened, and also as early as January this year. And basically, I just had people found out that I fell out first with a local transgendered person who was basically telling me that I was bigoted for not wanting to date trans men, and I thought, well, that, you know, that's my preference. It's nothing to do with you. They were a friend, and then we fell out. I blocked them completely, obviously, because I didn't want that negativity in my life. I mean, I respect them as a person. They have different views, but I didn't appreciate the way they went about it. It was quite fascist, in my
Hmm.
opinion. And I mean, as I say, I do respect trans people. I have quite a few transgender and transsexual friends myself, so who agree with what I'm saying, and that obviously I agree with what they're saying. You know, so I'm not saying I'm totally exclusionary, because I do have a lot of friends around me who obviously, and as you say, going back, they just want a quiet life. They just want to live in peace. You know,
Hmm.
but I mean, the thing is, it's like yeah, it's very difficult. And my jewelry business got attacked big time. I had loads of bad reviews left by people from the trans movement believing I was transphobic or bigoted or being funded by right-wing Christians. I get that, you know, a lot, and that's not true at all. It's a total.
Where did they get that idea? That's a bit strange.
They're getting that idea from the LGB Alliance, you know, because I support the LGB Alliance. The LGB Alliance actually stands up for
Hmm.
my sexual orientation rights, you know, so I do support them for
Hmm.
that. And
Yeah.
obviously, me coming out publicly and saying, well, I support them because this and this,
Mm.
I had all these accusations saying, do you know that the LGB Alliance is funded by far right Christians? And I'm thinking, give me evidence of that. And that's one thing I always ask. I say, give me the evidence. And as soon as someone
Mm.
says that, where's the evidence? And if they do
I want to
provide me with,
find out now. I'm
yeah,
curious. You don't think I don't
they
know?
haven't given me, yeah, they haven't given me any evidence. Now there was a donation made, I think,
Okay.
or someone said there was a donation made, and the LGB Alliance actually blocked that donation from going through. Obviously, if somebody
Okay.
says they support something, it doesn't make
Mm.
them like directly involved with that organization. If you support something, it
Hmm.
doesn't make that individual then be part of that organization. They're not, you know. The thing is, you don't have to. And the thing is, if someone comes out and says, I support the LGBT Alliance because it goes with my cause, rah, 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 it doesn't mean exactly that they're part of that LGBT Alliance. You know, people can just say things, and then people will be like,
Hmm.
well, and they'll automatically then tarnish the reputation of that organization. But that, I don't understand why people do that. You know, it doesn't make sense. Or as Blair
Yeah.
White likes to say, make it make sense. That's somebody else who's very controversial, who I absolutely adore, is Blair White.
Hmm.
Blair White's made some mistakes over the years, but we're only human, and she has apologized. So that's
Yeah.
another thing I want to get out there. And she is a transgender woman, so trans woman who was biologically male, and she literally makes that absolutely clear. And she goes against this entire gender ideology which has come out. It's incredibly cringing, and it's
Yeah.
so
Like
damaging
Buck
to,
Angel. Like Buck Angel is really open about the fact that
yeah,
he's biologically female, and that people should just be accepting of
yeah,
that.
and that's
And it
amazing.
doesn't
And
mean that he lives his life as a man, and I totally accept that.
I accept that. And I
So
mean, some of the gender critical people won't accept that. And you find, obviously, I use the right pronouns for Blair White. Now, pronouns is a
mm,
huge, just this whole thing. Now, personally, for me, using the right pronouns for somebody, I have no problem with. I don't understand why I find it insulting. If somebody's living their life in peace, you know, and they wish to be known as a male or a female from their biological sex, and they're not hurting
hmm.
anybody, they just want to get through life. I don't understand. I don't see the problem with calling them the pronouns that they're taken up. You know, I mean, I don't understand. I mean, with the ultra gender critical, I suppose it's a problem for them. But for me personally, I'm much more open minded. I don't see that as a threat
Yeah.
at all. I don't understand how
Hmm.
that's even would be a threat. I mean, they are still, a lot of these people, they do admit, they were biologically male or biologically female, but they just feel they were in the wrong body. It's because of their gender dysphoria that happens. And the thing is, there's no actual cure for gender dysphoria. There isn't. I mean, you can have loads and loads and loads of
Mm.
therapy, but it still won't help somebody, if they feel like they have to go to the extreme to change their body to be
Yeah.
a more of a female or male, from their biological sex. If that makes them happy and, makes them feel more them to carry on with their lives, then what's the problem with that? And I think it does help using the right pronouns for these people who just want to be left alone. They, like Blair White, obviously is a very controversial person. She's very outspoken, and obviously I do follow her. Another transgender person I do follow is Scott Nugent. He is amazing. I
Hmm.
and very outspoken again. The problem is with gender ideology, it has caused significant damage to the trans movement, to the trans cause in general. Because before all of this started exploding, I used to go. I mean, I used to be on the first two Dorchester Love Parades, which was our local gay pride in Dorchester. um, I used to be on the first couple of committees when it first started out, and it was fantastic. And we had transgender people there. We had
Hmm.
Bev and Charity, who were amazing. I loved them so much, and they also went round to local pubs and clubs in the area with their venture, which was called Tranioke, which was a karaoke. And obviously
Yeah.
they were transgender or transsexual individuals, and they made a play on their, obviously their, to kind of spread awareness and show that they're normal people like anybody else, and they had Tranioke, which
Yeah.
was karaoke, and it was fantastic. It was so much fun. It was so much more accepted as well. People were like literally, well, wow, it's people who don't understand, or maybe
And it's
are.
just a fun night. It was just a fun night.
It was a fun night, and it helped spread
Yeah.
the cause brilliantly. They are obviously trans people, but to spread the cause and the education away in a kind of light, happy, fun way, it made people
Hmm.
accept trans people much more better than obviously what some activists do of demanding that people change their views for them. So there is a right way and a wrong way to go about a cause in a way. And those sort of causes with some things like Tranioke, I think Tranioke should go out there. I think it should. I think trans people everywhere, if you're listening, create Tranioke, go down to your bar, get people interested, go and have a bit of fun, because you find doing it that way, actually, yeah, some people might find that insulting, but in a way it is very clever. It's incredibly clever, and it also, you get a lot more acceptance in a way by doing stuff like that, because it is taking the piss a little bit, but at the same time there is serious notes there. It's kind of spreading awareness in a way, so in a lighter way, I suppose. So yeah, it's fun. It's so much fun. And I mean, as I say, um yeah, so they're
It's
obviously
it's
their business, so that
it's
if
funny
people,
how what some activists aren't realizing is that you can't verbally beat someone up to get them, or use fear or intimidation to just get them to believe your cause or to join. And actually sometimes a more open, like providing a space for an open dialogue, you're more likely to get people to come over to your way of thinking
yeah,
than if you just use name calling. Or I mean, it's not just so activists on either side, um, to be more open and warm and accepting, and not just say, well, you don't agree with me, therefore you must be full of hate and I hate you
yeah,
too. I mean, that's not conducive
it's
to
not going to
any
help.
positive outcome.
I'm a
And
very positive. I'm a very positive and happy person. That's me naturally. I'm not, obviously, I do get angry at some people on Twitter. I have lost my rag a couple of times with people, not intentionally at all. obviously being appropriated by some. I mean, as I say, going back with the what we called interfakers, so people who pretend that they have intersex to bolster their cause, it is a huge insult. I'm debunking a lot of interfakers, so people who claim they're intersex, and then the most recent one, obviously, I found and I put on there was they said they had physical intersex. It was such a weird wording that I thought, that's odd. And my fellow advocate, Exo Turner, who has Turner syndrome, I'm not actually sure of their real name, but obviously I go by my sort of Twitter handle friends on there. I've got quite a few. Ray UK, Ray, I'm friends with. She's absolutely fantastic. So we do debunk these things, and we're pushing forward. There is a growing number of us as well who are fed up. A lot of people with DSDs don't really know about how we're being appropriated, and obviously they don't see what's happening. And I want more people with a DSD or VSD. There's so many different phrasings of intersex out there. You've got DSD, VSD, CCSD, which a lot of people I think Alex prefers that rather.
What does that stand for then?
Actually, that's a good point. I haven't actually looked it up. I think it's congenital conditions. I'm probably going to be corrected in the comments below, but I know obviously VSD is variations of sex development.
Yeah.
Obviously, DSD is what we said before, obviously with differences in sex development. So I think CCSD is something to do with congenital, which is a more sort of technical medical term, which is obviously it's being updated as it goes along, and there's probably going to be more sort of wording for us in a way. But obviously anything other than hermaphrodite I'm happy with, because hermaphroditism, it doesn't happen in humans, and that is an old outdated slur in a way.
Yeah.
But no, going back, obviously.
No, I was going to say, so part of me doing this podcast is I actually, I want to create a hypothetical manifesto of how we might change the world. And I'm asking all of my guests, what is the one thing, like if you could wave a magic wand and this manifesto could manifest, what is the one thing that you wish that would change in the world or in society that you would add to the Sex Manifesto?
Oh, God, that's a good
big question, I know.
I think if I waved a magic wand, I would want people to respect more one another, and respect is a very important thing. I think there's a lot of disrespect for a lot of people out there happening, and I believe that people have to stop infringing on each other's rights. I think those two things are major for people to come together, because coexistence can happen. I mean, for me, for example, I know coexistence can happen where people can completely disagree, but respect and tolerate one another, where they're not going to infringe on one another. And one of those,
totally.
And I will say, I am actually obviously gay. I've got an intersex condition. I'm also pagan. I practice, druidry, and it's very interesting to me. Obviously, it's a very personal thing to me. I wouldn't wish it for anyone else. My neighbours are Jehovah's Witnesses. They obviously are very devout in their religion. However, we are very much against each other because of our different ways in life, but we are good friends. They're not just neighbors to me. They are very good friends. They will do anything. For example, when I went into hospital last year for a suspected mini stroke, they rallied around straight away. They helped as much as they could. My mum had a heart attack last year. She's already had a heart attack, when she was age 42. That was about 10 years ago, and she had another heart attack last year, and they all rallied round to help straight away. If we needed medication, if we needed transport going in and out, if we needed just somebody to talk to, and during coronavirus pandemic, it's very difficult, obviously. So we do have this huge respect for one another. We do tolerate each other, and coexistence can happen.
Yeah. If you have to agree to disagree.
Yes, agree to disagree. It is a good thing, and it works. And that's my magic wand. I would want, obviously, respect stopping of infringement of rights and coexistence, because it can happen. We can come to solutions in society. It just takes a bit of effort, and it has to take compromise on both sides. I mean, when I've said that to people, I've had people on the trans side say, well, that people are going to lose their lives. I don't understand why a compromise would cause somebody to lose their lives. I mean, if it's a reasonable compromise, that's just silly. I think people are just being a bit too OTT with that. But compromise has to come from the gender criticals. I think one of the compromises I would say, especially in regards to bathrooms and changing rooms, I think unisex toilets, unisex changing rooms should be created. I think it would actually solve a lot of problems. And I think unisex, it can be for people who are trans, it can be people male, female.
Yeah, I still feel there's an argument for having unisex, but also, let's say, one cubicle for women and one for men separately, just in case some women might, women might. I mean, frankly, when I've been in a men's toilet, it's rather unpleasant. Okay, some women's toilets pretty unpleasant too. But there might be some. But there might, I feel like we've got a pub in town that has that option. So there's like unisex, male, female, and then there's 3 cubicles and you just pick whichever one you would like. And to me, that feels like the best, that feels like a compromise.
You will get non-binary people getting a bit angry with that, so they will have to have a toilet as well. So it's
can't they use the gender neutral toilet?
If there's a gender neutral toilet, yes, that's fine.
That's what I meant by unisex. Gender neutral. The gender neutral option, and then everyone gets one for themselves.
I think
it's just a matter of keeping it nice for the next person.
But if it works, if it's so, I mean, it's a bit of a chaotic mess, and it's obviously a huge undertaking for local councils who don't have much money to do something like that. But if it's going to solve a societal crisis in a way, which it is a societal crisis we have.
I think the issue is taking things away from one group to give to another group, whatever group that might be. I think that is where, that's the crux of the issue. So, if you have a gender neutral toilet, so hypothetically, if there was a women's toilet, a gender neutral and no men's toilet, I mean, you never hear a lot about men being in uproar about this, and that's a whole other story. But, there's so taking something away from a group. To provide for another group, whereas there should be more options in the world, not fewer options. I would say that's one of the issues. But it's been really, really great to speak to you, and thank you so much, Nick. And if we will put in your jewelry, I've seen it and it is really amazing. I kind of wish that I had someone to propose to give them a gorgeous ring, and we'll put that link down down below, and some of the other organizations that you've mentioned, we could put some links if you like. And what's your Twitter handle if people fancy following you on there?
Okay, so my Twitter handle is DSD Voice, or obviously people can search me up, Nick of Wessex, which obviously is the lovely old kingdom of Wessex. Just come over and have a look at what I post, really. And it's a lot of it is obviously concern. Some of it obviously is ranting. But on Twitter, I think everyone rants to one degree or to another.
Yeah, but thank you so much for speaking to me. It's been really, really enlightening and very interesting. And I'll catch up with you soon.
Oh, brilliant. Okay. Thank you so much. You're very welcome. It's been a pleasure. Bye.
You've been listening to the Sex Manifesto with me, Sarah Vaci, where we discuss the unspoken issues surrounding our bodies, sex lives and identities.